seat had been empty for 1,000 years. It sat at the back of the Grand Assembly Chamber on Belhari Prime, carved from black stone no living species could identify, etched with symbols archivists had spent 2 centuries failing to decode. The closest they ever came was a single word: Earth. The seat had been built for one kind of body: 2 legs, 2 arms, soft skin, no carapace, no extra limbs, no bioluminescent ridge or secondary jaw. A body that was, by the galaxy standards, embarrassingly fragile. In the 997 formal sessions held since that body's last appearance, the seat had never been filled. Nobody moved it. This was not sentiment. The 3 great empires had no use for sentiment. The seat stayed because removing it required a formal motion. A formal motion required debate, and no empire wanted to officially declare humanity dead. Dead things could not return and demand answers. Missing things were a different problem entirely. So the seat stayed, and the galaxy went on without them. Senator Var of the Dathi had looked at that seat every session for 40 years. He was old, not ancient by Dathi standards, but old enough that his 3 eyes were clouding at the edges, and his 6 fingers had developed the permanent curve of someone who had spent too long gripping things in cold transport ships. He represented the remnant assembly, the polite name for the 11 species crammed into the corner of the galaxy the Keth Dominion had not yet gotten around to absorbing. Today's session was about trade routes. It was always about trade routes, or territorial boundaries, or resource rights, different words for the same conversation. Who owned what, and who would die trying to take it back? Grand Executive Heth of the Keth Dominion stood at the center of the floor. The Keth did not sit. They had 6 legs and had spent their entire evolutionary history at the top of their food chain, and resting was something they considered a design flaw in weaker species. Heth's carapace was deep blue-black, the color of status that does not need to announce itself. He was explaining why the Morn Trade Corridor had been under Keth administrative authority for 3 years, and why the Assembly's objections were noted and irrelevant. Var stopped listening around the same time he'd learned to stop listening to Heth, approximately 600 sessions ago. Everyone was performing. The Grand Assembly had become theater, the script written in advance, the only question being who lost how much this decade. He was still looking at the empty seat when his communicator vibrated against his thigh. His aide had never interrupted a session floor appearance in 12 years. Var left it. It vibrated again. He checked it under the table edge, careful and fast. 3 words: Earth, frequency, signal, detected. He read them. He read them a second time. He put the communicator away. He sat, very still. Up at the front, Heath continued speaking, mapping ownership of things that belonged to other people. It took Var a moment to identify what had shifted in his chest. Hope. He had not felt that particular thing in a long time. The session ended an hour later. He found an empty alcove in the corridor, closed the door, and called his aide. She read him the message from Chief Observer Mara at the Dathi Outer Rim Observatory. The signal, the coordinates, the frequency match, the fact that it was broadcasting at precise 6-hour intervals. Book me transport to the Outer Rim. A pause. Senator, the water rights petition is in 4 days. Book the transport. He closed the call. In his coat pocket was a photograph his grandmother had given him. Physical paper, laminated to survive the decades. His grandmother young and laughing, and beside her, grinning in the slightly awkward way of people who are far from home and happy about it anyway, 2 humans, aid workers. They had come after a drought. They had stayed 2 years. They had become, according to his grandmother, among the finest people she had ever known. She had died waiting for them to come back. He walked to the transport bay with the careful posture of a man trying very hard not to run. Chief Observer Mara ran the Outer Rim Observatory on 3 functional dishes, a staff of 7, in a maintenance budget her predecessor had called an insult delivered with paperwork. She had been there 11 years. She checked the Earth coordinates every quarter because a note in the database said to, and she had never found anything, and she had expected to retire finding nothing. She was on the far side of the building with a hand torch when the signal came in. Her junior technician was alone in the monitoring room when the line appeared in the data. A frequency from a band nothing in the current galaxy used. Pre-departure human standard. Old enough to be museum grade. Fresh enough to have come in 6 minutes ago. Mara ran interference corrections, checked calibration, verified the source coordinates 4 times. Then she sat down. "What do we do?" he asked. "We tell Senator Varr. We tell nobody else until we know who already knows." 18 hours later, she had a partial decode. Not a distress signal, not military, navigational approach vectors, safe routes, every path marked with hazard designations in pre-departure human notation. An invitation, one that assumes someone would still be interested in coming. She put the full data on a sealed local drive, removed it from the connected network, and locked it in her desk. She was not paranoid. She had spent 11 years working in the part of the galaxy where the Keth operated, and she had learned the difference between paranoia and paying attention. 3 days after the first signal, a new message came from the Earth coordinates on the standard galactic band. Every translation unit in the known galaxy read it clean. "Hello. It has been a while. We are coming out. We come in peace and in strength, and we hope to see old friends. We know there are those who will find our return inconvenient. We ask only that you consider one thing. We left so that we could become something worth coming back as. We believe we have done that. We look forward to the conversation." 6 hours of deliberate silence. Then, to the remnant assembly specifically, "We have not forgotten. We will never forget." On a transport crossing the outer rim, Senator Varr read this 4 times. He looked at the stars and did not speak for a long time. They had no idea what was coming. He reached into his coat pocket and held the laminated photograph against his palm without looking at it. "They'll come back, little one," his grandmother's voice, gentle and completely certain. He had been waiting 40 years to find out if she was right. It turned out the answer was yes. Part 2. The station called Crosspoint had been neutral territory for 200 years, which meant it was so thoroughly monitored by all 3 empires that nobody could do anything there without everyone else finding out immediately. It sat at the intersection of 4 major transit lanes and held 80,000 people from 60 species. Its real economy was information, buying it, selling it, sitting on it, occasionally losing it to people who were better at the business of knowing things. The human ship came out of transit on a clear morning by station time. Every species in the known galaxy had a different way of dealing with things they did not understand. The Keth diplomatic courier that had docked 6 hours earlier sent an encrypted report the moment the ship appeared on sensors. The Morn information brokers pulled out their recording equipment. The handful of remnant assembly civilians pressed against the observation windows with an intensity that made station security officers nervous. The ship was not what anyone expected. Not large. A warship establishing dominance comes in big and loud. This one was medium-sized and elegant in the way of something built without compromise, every surface doing exactly what it needed to do and nothing else. It moved through the docking approach with a precision that made experienced pilots go quiet, because the control implied by that movement was not control you saw on a ship operated by an ordinary crew. It docked without a single correction burn. The airlock opened. 3 people walked out. 2 legs, 2 arms, plain dark clothing. 2 of them were clearly security. The third was a woman in her middle years, brown skin, gray streak in dark hair pulled back. She moved the way certain people move, when they have reached the point in their lives where they no longer feel the need to perform anything for anyone. She stopped in the center of the docking bay, looked around at the crowd, and took it all in with an expression that was not quite a smile and not quite anything else. And she said, in clear, standard galactic that needed no translation unit, "Hello." She said it the way you say hello to someone you have been looking forward to seeing. Her name was Commander Yara Reyes. She was Earth's representative. She had not slept in 22 hours. None of that showed. The station administrator got to her first. "Commander Reyes, welcome to Crosspoint. We were not certain what to expect." "That seems fair. We haven't been around in a while. Is there somewhere we can talk? I imagine there's a lot of ground to cover." There was. Sub-Executor Venn was already in the meeting room when they arrived. Not how the administrator had arranged it, but not surprising, because the Keth were very good at being in places before they were invited. He took the largest chair at the head of the table and looked at Reyes with the calculating expression of something deciding how large a problem it was looking at. "The Keth Dominion welcomes the return of the human species. Grand Executive Heth has asked me to convey his personal interest in establishing a productive relationship. Tell him thank you." She sat in the middle, at the side where she could see everyone. "I'd be glad to meet with him directly. There's a great deal to talk about. The Grand Executive hopes you'll appreciate that the current galactic order has certain established facts." "Yes," Reyes said. "We're aware." She picked up the water at her seat, considered it briefly, put it down. "We've been watching." Ven's carapace shifted. "We left. We didn't stop paying attention." She said it without heat, in the tone of someone stating the obvious. "We know what the galaxy looks like now. We know about the 3 expansion campaigns, the consolidation acts, the current composition of the remnant assembly." She paused. "We know about the Sarathi clearance, the Dathi third reduction, the Pelion relocation." The room was very quiet. "We have been watching for a long time," she said. "We did not speak because we were not ready. We are ready now." "Ready for what precisely?" "That," Reyes said, "is exactly the conversation I'd like to have." Senator Varr arrived at Crosspoint 14 hours later. He had not slept on the transport. The security officer who met him at the docking bay was a young Dathi woman who had clearly been crying and had not finished deciding how to feel about that. She handed him a folded piece of paper, physical paper. He opened it. "Senator, we would very much like to see you. Room 7, second level. Take all the time you need. We will be here. Reyes." He did not take his time. She was alone in the room, sitting with her hands around a cup of something hot. When he walked in, she stood and looked at him the way someone looks when they have read carefully about a person and is now meeting them for the first time, and finding the meeting is what they expected, which is its own kind of relief. She extended her hand. He knew enough human history to understand the gesture. He took it. Brief, firm, nothing to prove. "Senator Varr," she said, "I've read everything we have on your career, what you built for the assembly in these conditions." She held his gaze. "It is remarkable. I mean that without any of the flattery in it." He had spent 40 years in politics. He knew the sound of a compliment being used as a tool. This was not that sound. "I have questions," he said. "I'd be concerned if you didn't." "Where did you go?" "Somewhere safe. We found a way to fold a section of space that couldn't be observed from outside. We called it the between." She said this plainly, as if folding space-time were the kind of solution you arrive at when you need uninterrupted time to work. "We spent 1,000 years inside it. 1,000 years. We had a great deal to figure out." She turned her cup between her palms. "We could see where the galaxy was heading before we left. We were too young to do anything about it. We didn't have the tools. So we made a decision as a species. It took about 30 years of debate, which probably tells you something about us, to go away and build the tools before we came back. We thought it was better to wait until we could actually help than to arrive too early and make everything worse. That is a very long time to wait. We are patient, she said, when we need to be. It was said quietly, just a simple statement of fact. It sat in the room like something much larger than the words that carried it. "What are you going to do?" he asked. She thought for a moment. She was someone who thought before speaking. Talk first, with everyone. Give the current powers a genuine chance to adjust. She said this with no judgment. Some will take that chance, some won't. And the ones who won't. She looked at the viewport, at the open stars beyond the station glass. We didn't spend 1,000 years building weapons. We built medicine, energy systems, agricultural methods that work on any world, schools, governance frameworks, support structures for species that have been living under occupation. She looked back at him. The weapons were a small part, but we built those too. She said the last sentence in exactly the same tone as the rest. The Keth warship arrived 6 hours later, not a diplomatic courier, an escort class, the kind used when a diplomatic party has not been given a choice about where it is traveling. Var found Reyes on the observation deck, watching it come in. She did not look alarmed. She looked the way someone looks when they have anticipated something and are now watching it arrive on schedule. "Are you concerned?" he asked. "No." She pulled out her communicator and sent a short message. 8 minutes later, every light on the Keth warship went out. Every system shut down simultaneously. Not an explosion, not a distress event. A clean, total shutdown, as if someone had reached in and turned off every circuit at once. The warship hung in the dark for 6 seconds. Then everything came back on, clean and undamaged. The communications channel opened. The Keth captain's voice was not steady. "What did you do to my ship?" Reyes spoke calmly into her communicator. "We demonstrated something, Captain. Your ship is fine. Nothing is damaged. We wanted to show you what a conversation looks like when it's with us." A pause. "Sub-Executor Venn is in room 6, second level. Please tell him we'd love to continue our discussion at his convenience." She put the communicator away and looked back at the stars. "Now," she said to no one in particular, "we'll see who wants to talk." Var put his hand in his coat pocket and held the laminated photograph without taking it out. His grandmother would have liked this woman very much. He was sure of that. He stood in the silence of something that had been building for 1,000 years and had just, at last, begun. Part 3. The Coalition fleet came out of transit at the edge of Earth's solar system and ran sensor sweeps for 90 minutes before moving closer. Fleet Admiral Dresch sat in his chair and understood, with the specific skill of 30 years of command, that something was wrong. Earth's star was in position, the planets in correct orbits. The third planet, blue, green, and white clouded at long range, exactly as the historical files described. Everything else was not where it should have been. The sensors read orbital infrastructure stretching from Earth's upper atmosphere out past the fourth planet, dense, layered, complex. The sensor AI classified the readings as unknown. It kept classifying them as unknown through 3 separate analysis runs. "Unknown as in unclear?" Dresch asked his sensor chief. "Unknown as in not in any category our systems have," she said carefully. "The readings are clear, they're just new." They followed the broadcast approach vectors. 90 minutes in, a message came on the standard band. "Admiral Dresch, welcome. We have been tracking your approach since transit emergence. Please continue on your current heading. We would like to talk." He stopped the fleet. The voice had used his name, his correct rank and name, in a system empty for 1,000 years. He responded, requesting full disclosure of defensive installations and territorial claims. The reply came quickly. "Those are reasonable requests, Admiral. We would rather answer them in person. We think it will be more useful to show you than to tell you." Coordinates appeared on his navigation display, 60,000 kilometers above Earth's North Pole. "Proceed," he said. They moved in slowly, 200 ships in the vanguard, shields up, weapons charged. At 40,000 kilometers, the vanguard stopped, not on Dresch's order. Every ship simply stopped, engines running, all systems operational, no alarms. Stopped and held, as if something large and invisible and completely calm had placed itself in their way. His communicator activated. "Admiral, we don't want this to become something it doesn't need to be. We've stopped your forward group as a demonstration, not an attack. Nothing is damaged. Please look at your long-range sensors." He looked. The space around Earth was changing. Not the planet, the space itself. The unknown readings were activating, resolving from invisibility into presence. The sensor overlay held, solid gold, spreading from Earth outward until it covered everything from the planet's atmosphere to where 1,200 ships were sitting. 1,200 ships inside something. They had been inside it for 51 minutes and had not known. "We've had a long time to build," the voice said. 1,000 years. "We have always been very good at building things." A pause. "We are not going to harm you. We want to invite one representative to the surface. A conversation. That is all we are asking for." Dresch ran diagnostics on every system. Everything operational. Everything intact. He made the command decision. The kind that did not feel good and was completely correct. "Tell them we accept." He went down in a single shuttle. Earth from below was a world that had been given time. The sky, the deep blue of air that had not been industrially processed in decades. Forests, the dense green of old growth. Clear coastline over visible rock. Reyes met him at the landing ramp and walked him to a building, modest from the outside, and inside an operations center 6 times the ground of his flagship's command deck. 342 orbital installations in this system, she said as they walked, with the quiet satisfaction of work that had gone the way she hoped. 4 deep space stations beyond the outer planets. She paused at a map display. And approximately 162 other systems at current count. The count changes. We're still building. Dresch stopped walking. "Some of those systems are currently claimed," he said. "Some were taken from species who were living there before the claims were made. We've looked at the records carefully. We have very detailed records." He performed the only task he had ever been good at: assessment. "What do you want?" he said. "A conversation with everyone. A framework for what the galaxy looks like going forward. Not conquest. We are not interested in running what they run. We're interested in things being different." "Different how?" "Different in the ways that matter," she said. "You know which ways those are." He did. He went back to his shuttle. He sat in it a long time before signaling the pilot. Then he gave the order that ended his career and was still, clearly, the right order to give. He recalled the full fleet. 1,200 ships, retreating in good order from a planet that had not fired a single weapon. His report to Heath and Celis said in part, "I have stood inside what they have built. I have seen its scope. I have spoken with their representative. This is not a military problem. A military response will not resolve this. This is a negotiation. Begin it immediately. They are not what we expected. I do not mean their technology. I mean them. I believe it matters." Part 4. The emergency session of the Grand Assembly convened on Velhari Prime, and for the first time in living memory, every tier was full. The empty seat was still there. Heath read Dresch's report into the formal record and Tor's earlier report beside it. He did not editorialize. The numbers did the work. 162 systems, 342 orbital installations, 1,200 ships held in open space for 51 minutes without a single weapon fired. When he finished, the chamber was quiet in the specific way of a room absorbing something it did not want to absorb. High Arbiter Celis spoke from her tier without standing. Both reports contain the same recommendation. Two senior military officers operating independently have recommended immediate negotiation. Both were under significant psychological pressure, said a Keth subcommander. Admiral Tor has commanded 3 expansion campaigns, Heth said without turning. He does not have emotional states during operations. A pause that was itself a rebuke. He has assessments. Celis continued. We are not dealing with a standard military variable. We are dealing with something we do not fully understand. I would recommend this assembly proceed on the assumption that what we do not understand significantly outweighs what we do. Then the chamber doors opened. She did not knock. She did not send an aide ahead. She did not wait for acknowledgement. Yara Reyes walked through the doors, crossed the floor between the tiers, and stepped onto the speaking floor as if she had been assigned to it. She came alone to the center and stood there and looked up at 312 delegates from 41 species looking back at her. The Grand Assembly chamber was designed to make individuals look small, tiers rising steeply on all sides, a domed ceiling painted with star maps, the speaking floor a deliberately exposed position at the bottom of a bowl of watching eyes. It made everyone look small. That was the design. Reyes stood in the middle of it and looked like she had been the one who designed it. This session is closed to external parties, Heath said. I know. I came anyway. She turned slowly, taking in every tear. You're talking about us. I thought we should be in the room. She looked up at the star map on the ceiling. We have a different map. I'll share it after. I think the comparison would be useful. She turned to Heth. I'll ask for 30 minutes. If the body wants me to leave after that, I will leave. But I think it's better that I'm here. We should be in the room when our future is being discussed. The chamber was quiet. Heth looked at her for a long moment, and Var, from his tier, could see something working behind the Grand Executive's eyes, the particular motion of someone recalibrating in real time. Speak, Heth said. She spoke for 43 minutes. Nobody asked her to stop at 30. She was not loud, not dramatic. She used no emotional language, no threats, no deliberate pauses designed to create tension. She described things clearly, in order, the way a person describes things when they are confident the things themselves are sufficient. She described what Earth had done in the between, the research programs by name and field, the construction timelines, the generations of people who had been born, lived, and died in the folded space, each one carrying forward their grandparents had started. She described what it meant to be a species that had made a collective decision and held it across 1,000 years, each generation understanding what the decision was for. Barr wrote that sentence in his notes. He wrote it twice. She described the infrastructure. She described the mechanism of the fleet arrest, not in full technical detail, but in principle, enough for the engineers in the room to follow. And she watched their faces as she did, and her expression did not change when she saw what landed there. Then she came to the remnant assembly. We have looked carefully at the history of the past 300 years. We know what happened to every species currently in the remnant assembly tier. We know who did what. We know the difference between administrative consolidation and what administrative consolidation actually means when you look at the numbers of people involved. She paused, for the first time, not for effect, but for care. We are not here to punish anyone. We are not a court. We are not interested in retribution. She looked at Heth. She looked at Celis. We are interested in what comes next. And what comes next has to include making certain things right, not all at once, not through force, through a framework that everyone in this room has the chance to agree to. She stepped back from the center of the floor. The offer will be in writing within 24 hours. One offer, all parties, full terms simultaneously. She looked around the chamber one final time. Thank you for the time. I'll be outside when you're ready to talk. She left. The doors closed. The chamber stayed quiet for 11 seconds. Then everyone started speaking at once. Part 5. The Cross-Point Compact was signed on Earth, in a building with open windows looking out at a garden, because the humans had asked if they could do it that way, and nobody had objected. It was not a surrender document, not a treaty of conquest. It was, as Reyes had said it would be, a framework. The Keth Dominion kept 60% of the systems it administered, minus the 27 from which remnant assembly species had been displaced. The Valhari kept their territory with similar adjustments. The Morn trade routes were declared open access, administered neutrally. The remnant assembly got its worlds back, every single one. Not immediately. The framework had a 30-year implementation timeline, world by world, with oversight at each stage. But the words were on the page, backed by something that had stopped 1,200 warships in open space. And those words said, "These worlds belong to these peoples, and the situation will be corrected." Barr signed for the remnant assembly. He held the pen for a long moment before putting it to paper. Reyes put her hand briefly on his shoulder, the way his grandmother had put her hand on the shoulders of people she was trying to steady, and then moved on to the next piece of business. He stayed at the table after she left, the signed document in front of him, and thought about 40 years of looking at an empty seat. She had said to him in their private meeting something that had not gone into any communique or record. She had said, "We know we can't fix what happened while we were gone. We know we weren't here. That matters to us. It matters in a way we're still working through as a species." She had looked at her hands. "But we're here now, and we're not leaving again." He had believed her. He still believed her. He put the photograph on the table beside the document. His grandmother, the village, the two humans grinning, permanent and improbable in their paper frame. Old friends, the signal had said. Yes, that was what they were. 6 months after the compact was signed, a Dathi girl named C stood in a field on a world her people had been returned to. She was 9 years old. The field had been farmland before the displacement, and it was going to be farmland again. Right now it was tall, dry grass that reached her shoulders and moved when the wind pushed through it. Her mother was a kilometer behind her, working on soil surveys. Her job, because she was 9, was to stay out of the way, which she was doing by walking into the field until the grass was taller than she was, and lying down. She lay on her back and looked at the sky. She knew about the compact. She knew the word between and what it meant. She knew about Commander Reyes and Senator Varr and the framework and the 30-year implementation timeline. She knew that this world, this field, this grass, this sky was supposed to have been theirs all along and was now theirs again, because something very old and very far away had come back. Above her, among the stars, was another light, steady, fixed in a specific position above the eastern horizon, unblinking in the way of something placed deliberately rather than something burning. An Earth relay station, one of dozens now in this system, threaded outward to others, and those to others, all the way back to the blue-green planet that had come home. She had asked her mother once what the relay stations actually did beyond connecting communications.